There is one city on earth that three of the world's major religions all claim as sacred. One city that has been destroyed at least twice, besieged more than 20 times, attacked 52 times, and captured and recaptured 44 times across recorded history. A city where you can stand on a rooftop and see a Jewish synagogue, a Christian church, and a Muslim minaret all within a few hundred meters of each other, all built on the same few square kilometers of limestone hill in the Judean desert. But rewind 5,000 years, and this is just a water source in the hills, a spring, some nomadic camps, no monument, no temple, no wall. What happened in between? Conquest, massacre, revelation, destruction so complete the city was buried under its own rubble. Rebuilt, destroyed again, fought over by Egyptians, Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, Arabs, Crusaders, Mamluks, Ottomans, and the British. No city in human history has been wanted this badly by this many people for this long. Using AI trained on historical imagery, we can now see those earlier versions of Jerusalem as they might have appeared. The gleaming temple, the siege engines at the walls, the smoke rising over the ruins. You are about to witness 5,000 years of the most fought-over city in human history. Let's go back to where it all began. Before we go back, if you're new here, this channel covers the most important and most brutal chapters of real history. Every week, a new deep dive. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming. Now, let's go back to the beginning.
The first settlers here are not Israelites, not Jews, not Christians, not Muslims. They are Canaanites, a Semitic people who settle near the Gihon Spring, the only reliable water source in these hills, sometime around 3500 BC. They call the place Jebus. It is a modest city, perhaps a few thousand people, but strategically placed on a ridge impossible to attack from three sides. For 2,000 years, it passes between Canaanite clans, Egyptian influence, and various local rulers. History barely notices it. Then, around 1000 BC, a king arrives who changes everything. His name is David. David, king of the Israelite tribes, chooses Jerusalem as his capital for exactly the same reason the Canaanites chose it, its defensive geography. But he adds something the Canaanites never had. He brings the Ark of the Covenant into the city, the sacred object that in Israelite belief contains the direct presence of God. With a single act, David transforms a Canaanite hilltop settlement into the spiritual center of a nation. His son Solomon takes it further. Around 960 BC, Solomon builds the first temple on the ridge above the city, a structure of cedar wood, stone, and gold, containing the ark in its innermost chamber, the Holy of Holies. Jerusalem is now not just a capital, it is where God lives. After Solomon's death, the kingdom fractures. The 10 northern tribes split off. Jerusalem remains the capital of the southern kingdom of Judah, but the unified Israelite kingdom is gone. Now the great empires take notice. In 701 BC, the Assyrian king Sennacherib besieges Jerusalem. According to the Bible, the city is saved by divine intervention. 185,000 Syrian soldiers struck dead overnight. Modern historians debate what actually happened. The Assyrians withdraw. The city survives. It is not so lucky with Babylon. In 586 BC, Nebuchadnezzar II does what no one has yet managed. He breaks through the walls, burns the temple to the ground, and deports most of the surviving population to Babylon. The first temple is destroyed. Jerusalem is rubble. The Jewish exiles spend 50 years in Babylon. Then Persia conquers Babylon. The Persian king Cyrus the Great issues a remarkable edict. The exiles may return home. He even funds the rebuilding of the temple. Around 515 BC, the Second Temple is completed. Smaller than Solomon's, less magnificent, but the sacred fire is burning again in Jerusalem. Then Alexander the Great sweeps through in 332 BC. Then his successors fight over the city for generations. Then a Greek king named Antiochus IV does the unthinkable. He defiles the temple, installs a statue of Zeus inside it, and bans Jewish religious practice on pain of death. The result is the Maccabean Revolt, a Jewish uprising that recaptures Jerusalem, cleanses the temple, and establishes the holiday of Hanukkah. The city is theirs again, for a while. In 63 BC, the Roman general Pompey walks into the Holy of Holies, the innermost chamber of the temple where only the high priest was permitted to enter once a year. He looks inside. He touches nothing. He leaves. For the Jewish people, the violation is absolute. But Pompey, to his credit, does not loot the temple. Rome needs Judea as a buffer state, and for now the relationship is manageable. Then Herod the Great arrives. Appointed king by Rome, despised by his own people, Herod does something extraordinary. He spends decades rebuilding and expanding the temple into one of the greatest structures in the ancient world. The Temple Mount that visitors see today, that massive platform of stone, is Herod's foundation, still standing after 2,000 years. Into this Jerusalem, sometime around 30 AD, comes a rabbi from Galilee named Jesus of Nazareth. He teaches in the temple courts. He overturns the money changers' tables. He is arrested, tried by the Roman governor Pontius Pilate, and crucified outside the city walls. His followers believe he rises from the dead. That belief, born in a small corner of the Roman Empire, in a city that was itself under occupation, becomes the most widely held religious belief in human history. 2 billion people today trace their faith to what happened in Jerusalem in those 3 days. The Romans and the Jewish population increasingly clash. In 66 AD, a full-scale Jewish revolt breaks out. Rome responds with overwhelming force. In 70 AD, the Roman general Titus, son of Emperor Vespasian, breaches the walls after a 5-month siege. The starvation inside has been catastrophic. When the legions break through, they burn the temple. The Second Temple is gone. The historian Josephus, an eyewitness, writes that 1.1 million people died in the siege and its aftermath. Modern historians debate the number, but the destruction is total. 60 years later, Emperor Hadrian suppresses a second revolt, bans Jews from the city entirely, and builds a new Roman city on the ruins, renamed Aelia Capitolina, a temple to Jupiter on the site of the Jewish temple. Jerusalem, for Jewish people, has ceased to exist.
The Roman city of Aelia Capitolina sits on Jerusalem's ruins for nearly 2 centuries. Then, in 313 AD, Constantine legalizes Christianity across the Roman Empire. His mother, Helena, makes a pilgrimage to Jerusalem and claims to have found the true cross, the cross on which Jesus was crucified. Whether the relic is genuine, the political decision is real. Constantine orders the construction of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre over the site of the crucifixion and tomb. Jerusalem is holy again, but to a different faith. The city fills with churches. Pilgrims arrive from across the Christian world. A city that had been deliberately erased is now the most important destination in Christendom. Then, in 638 AD, the Caliph Umar ibn el-Khattab rides into Jerusalem.
The city falls to the early Islamic Empire without a battle. Umar refuses to pray inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. He fears that his followers will turn it into a mosque. Instead, he prays outside. It is an act of deliberate tolerance that Jerusalem will rarely see again. Jerusalem is sacred to Islam because the Prophet Muhammad is said to have ascended to heaven from the Temple Mount during his night journey. The Dome of the Rock is built over the very spot in 691 AD, one of the oldest Islamic structures in the world and still one of the most recognizable buildings on earth. The same patch of ground is now sacred to three faiths simultaneously. The stage is set for everything that follows. We are about halfway through Jerusalem's story, and we haven't even reached the Crusades yet. If this is landing for you, subscribe right now, because next week we are going deep on one of the most brutal and fascinating episodes in this city's history as a standalone episode. But first, the wars for the Holy City are about to begin. In 1095, Pope Urban II calls for a holy war to recapture Jerusalem for Christendom. The response across Europe is extraordinary. Nobles, peasants, knights, and priests, hundreds of thousands of people begin marching east. 3 years later, in June 1099, the Crusader army reaches Jerusalem. They besiege the city for 5 weeks. On July 15, 1099, they breach the walls. What follows is a massacre. The chronicler Raymond of Aguilers writes that the blood of the slain reached the knees of the horses. Modern historians are more careful with the figures, but the killing of Muslim and Jewish inhabitants of Jerusalem is extensive and deliberate. The Crusaders have their holy city. They hold it for 88 years. In 1187, Saladin, the Kurdish Muslim general who has reunified the Islamic world, defeats the Crusader army at the Battle of Hattin. He recaptures Jerusalem without a massacre. Christian inhabitants are allowed to ransom themselves. The churches are mostly left intact. The contrast with 1099 is noted by chroniclers on both sides. The Crusaders launch campaign after campaign to take it back. Richard the Lionheart comes within sight of Jerusalem in 1192, but never enters. The city passes back and forth through negotiation and war for another century. By 1291, the last Crusader foothold in the region falls. The Christian kingdoms of the Holy Land are finished. Jerusalem stays in Muslim hands, first Ayyubid, then Mamluk, for the next 2.5 centuries.
In 1517, the Ottoman Sultan Selim I takes Jerusalem from the Mamluks. His son, Suleiman the Magnificent, rebuilds the walls of the old city between 1537 and 1541. Those walls, still standing today, are what most visitors think of when they picture Jerusalem. They are 500 years old. Considered old for a city that is 5,000 years old. Under Ottoman rule, Jerusalem settles into something it has rarely known: relative stability. The city is holy, but not strategically critical to the Ottoman Empire. It is administered, taxed, and largely left to its own religious communities. Christians, Muslims, and Jews each manage their own holy sites under a system of Ottoman-enforced tolerance, uneasy, often contentious, but functional for centuries. Through the 17th and 18th centuries, Jerusalem is a backwater by Ottoman standards, a small city, perhaps 15,000 to 20,000 people, but a city charged with meaning far beyond its size. Jewish communities begin returning in larger numbers through the 19th century, driven by rising European anti-Semitism and the beginnings of Zionist thought. By 1900, Jews are actually the majority population of Jerusalem. Meanwhile, European powers are increasingly interested in the city. Britain, France, Russia, all positioning themselves as protectors of various Christian communities. The Ottoman Empire is weakening. Everyone can see it. When the First World War comes, Jerusalem becomes a prize. In December 1917, British General Allenby walks through the Jaffa Gate on foot, deliberately as a gesture of humility. The Ottoman era in Jerusalem is over. The British era is about to begin its own short and turbulent chapter.
Britain promises different things to different people. The Balfour Declaration of 1917 promises support for a Jewish homeland in Palestine. Previous promises to Arab leaders suggested an independent Arab state in the same territory. These commitments cannot both be kept. Through the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, Jewish immigration to Palestine accelerates, driven first by opportunity, then by the rise of Nazism, then by the Holocaust. The Arab population resists. Violence between communities escalates. The British find the territory ungovernable and hand the problem to the newly formed United Nations. In May 1948, Israel declares independence. The armies of 5 Arab nations immediately invade. The war that follows is called Israel's War of Independence by Israelis and the Nakba, the catastrophe, by Palestinians. Jerusalem is divided, the western half under Israeli control, the eastern half, including the Old City, the Western Wall, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Dome of the Rock, and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, all within walking distance of each other, all simultaneously sacred to hundreds of millions of people around the world. Israel considers Jerusalem its eternal, undivided capital. Palestinians consider East Jerusalem the capital of a future Palestinian state. Most of the world does not formally recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. The status of the city, who controls it, who has sovereignty over what, remains the most contested question in international diplomacy. No peace deal for the region has ever succeeded. Every attempt has broken on the question of Jerusalem. The city is still being fought over, not with siege towers and battering rams, but in international courts, in diplomatic negotiations, in UN resolutions that go unheeded, and in violence that flares and subsides and flares again.
That is the entire history of Jerusalem, from a Canaanite water source to the most fought-over piece of land in human history, and everything in between. Now I want to hear from you. Which moment in Jerusalem's history do you think changed the world most? The building of the temple? The crucifixion? The Islamic conquest? The Crusades? The founding of Israel? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one and I will reply. And if this video landed differently from what you normally watch, subscribe and hit the bell. Next week, we are going deep on one specific era of Jerusalem's history in a full, dedicated episode. The research I have done is genuinely extraordinary. And let me know below, what city do you want me to cover next? Constantinople, Alexandria, Babylon, Baghdad. Your vote decides it. I will see you in history.